So I got the record deal right after lockdown ended.
Right.
Like literally like that April when we opened up. A friend of mine who I do the road with, we co-headline a lot, and he's my co-host on Celebrity, Mark Riccadonna.
Right.
He's got a deal with Realize Records, and they've been around forever. They're a small indie music record label, and they've done a few comedians. So whatchamacallit, Michelle, her and her husband own the record label, and they do, I mean, it's all like mom and pop, but they're been around 30, 40 years. Like they've been forever. So she was asking him, do you have any female comics? I'm sick of, like, we need more women. Like, I want to put more women comic albums out. He goes, oh, I have just the girls. So he sent her my clip of the one I did that's on YouTube about Cuomo sexual harassment.
Yeah,
he
I saw
sent
that one.
He sent that link. I love Andrew Cuomo, by the way. So, and that's real. So, so he submitted it to her, and her husband's like, fuck the other projects. I want to produce this now because I want to see what else she has to say. And that's like one of my favorite reactions from people that listen or audience. It's like, what else is she going to say?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh my God, I have to hear everything she says. So I got the deal. And because it was coming out of lockdown, I said, all right, well, I don't have everything polished yet. Let me really polish an hour and a half. Let me really get solid, or maybe 2 hours. Let me see what I can write and and polish up that I'd been working on for a couple months in lockdown. So I was like, all right. So I spent a year just trying shit, throwing shit against the wall, twisting shit around, and my bits get long. So by the time we did it, it was September of last year that I did the album. By June, I said, all right, I contacted Michelle. I said, all right, I have a date set in September to record my album. She goes, great. Send me the date. I'll send the crew. Great. So I set it up. I was like, all right, that's plenty of time. I'm only, like, most comedians are smart and they'll do like 2, 3, 4 shows and then pick and choose the best of the best and edit. I did it all in one shot. I said, I don't care if I bomb. I don't care if it's like the greatest set of my life. I'm going to leave it all on the stage that night, blood, sweat, and tears, raw me, because that's how I am. And that's what I did.
So, go on. You were going to say?
Oh no! So, and it felt like I was like, "Oh my God!" And on my head, I'm like, "It's only been 50," and I'd forgotten about a half hour's worth of material to do. And I did a set list on the riser, the podiums on the stage. Like, we could put your set list when you record. I put bits on there that I didn't want to forget, like the stuff that's my usual half hour, 45 minutes is there. And there was stuff that I haven't done in 20 years. And then there was stuff that I was like, that was new or new tags or new, adding on to in the last month or two. I didn't want to forget because it was so I wrote that stuff down and I still forgot stuff. So it happens, but it ended up being an hour and 25 minutes. It felt like about 50. I was like, fuck, I didn't do an hour. And I said, fuck it. Whatever I got.
Right.
And I looked at the time and the engineer was like, oh no, that was an hour and a half. And I'm like, oh yes. I go, now they could cut. I thought they were going to cut 45 minutes down to 40 because you only need 40 to be recommended for, like, to be considered for a Grammy nomination. So Michelle said, you have to have at least 40. Let's go for 45. I said, great. It's an hour and 5. So they only took 20, 25 minutes off.
Were you also in charge of the editing as far as what stays in, what stays out, and how it's composited together?
I got the final say.
Okay.
I told Paul every album he's ever edited for a comedian gets nominated for a Grammy. I was like, I trust you, and you know what Sirius wants to buy, and you know how they do their tracks. So when I recorded the album, she said the tracks have to be 2 minutes long, like 2.5 minutes long. Great. Some of my bits are longer.
Right.
And one of the big things why it was delayed for 6 months to be released, or was September 25th. So it was, October, November, December, January, February. Yeah. 6 months to the day was they had another huge project that they were on when I did the album. It was a big movie project, which ended up falling through at the beginning of the year, which sucks for them. but also she kind of held it back in the scheme of Sirius was going through a huge revamping of their comedy channels and how they buy content and how they air content and what they're going to buy and what they're no longer going to buy and their whole format. So she waited to get those contracts settled with them, with her relationship with them. So 2-minute tracks are now 4 and 5 minutes long. So when a Sirius buys a track, if they're all 2 minutes long and you have 30 tracks, because it's an hour, right? 2 minutes, 30.
Right.
They buy 30 tracks. They're paying for 30 individual tracks. But if the tracks are 4 minutes long, that's only 15 tracks. They only have to buy 15. So they're saving money. So it's funny because like the way they cut it, I was like, do you really cut the pronouns and the gay superheroes that way? But that was how she had to do it. And I was like, okay, that's fine, but all I had to, they edited everything. There was one thing they took out that I'm like, where is this? This is like one of the main bits that I loved, that I wanted on the album. So they put it back in and took out something else that I said, take out that doesn't need to be, it was kind of redundant. So they switched it and that bit was the Kim Kardashian, Pete Davidson bit. They took out. Not realizing.
I've heard that one before too. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's one of the clips I posted. Yeah. So
I saw that one too. So here's actually what I wanted to go through with you real quick because I wrote down some of my favorite tracks that I've come across from the record.
Yeah.
So and there's quite a few, but I try to condense some of the ones I really want to focus on the most because the one thing that I think that really caught my attention the most was the pronoun bit.
Nice.
Where you delved into that, and you've talked about it before, several times here before. Mm-hmm. But this was interesting for me because, with the way, because I've actually had conversations, not in that territory, but just the whole idea of not the conversation about representation among other things as well too, as being a major thing now, and people's perspective on how all that changed as far as, the importance of all that, which I'm all for. But at the same time, I'm wondering there's got to be an agenda because it seems like it's more like do it like this, or it's just do it like this. And if you don't, then you're bad or something to that effect. And
I'm sorry.
No, go. You were going to say?
No. You keep going.
No. And the reason I was pointing this out with you because I never really thought too much about the pronouns aspect of it here too. And and when lately I've been listening to a lot of people's perspective on the use of the word, the pronouns and what that represents for the persons and so on and so forth. Because when I'm looking at it for more on the angle of like sexual representation, racial representation, things of that nature, because most people that I tend to talk to here on the show tend to be more in the entertainment industry. So to get an angle about their perspective on that, especially of someone of color that is coming through the business and so on, and what that means for them and so on and so forth. But pronouns is a rather new thing for a lot of people, obviously myself included. And when I hear people talk about it, it comes from various angles about what they perceive on that, what the perception is. I mean to say. But when I heard you talk about that, I think with what you just said right there, for the most part, if anyone that has an opinion on what it actually means, I think the way that you described it, for the most part, I would say, and let me know if I'm wrong, is basically what I guess some people who don't really understand it or do understand it, but don't really appreciate the agenda behind it, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you can clarify with what you talked about in that bit there, because it was interesting for me, but it was also funny at the same time. But it was a new angle that I'm not really too privy to, that I wanted to see if you can delve more further into that, because something of this sort here can be kind of taboo. And, the risk that you take on in sharing your thoughts on that could probably bite you in the ass, either immediately or in the long term, depending how things are changing along the way. Absolutely. And if you had any concerns about, if I do this joke and put it out there in this platform, what are going to be the consequences of the said joke? And I'm curious to see if anything has changed as a result of that for yourself since it's been out, and now that people have a different perception of it at this point with the pronouns usage here.
Well, what I found, and I'm a huge ally.
Right.
I'm one of the old school fag hags on the planet. I grew up in San Francisco.
Right.
I remember growing up and like my cousins were gay. Then there was like drag queens, and these guys had to sneak into bars with their suitcases and get ready in those scuzzy bathrooms because heaven forbid, they'd be outside and drag. They'd get murdered or killed.
Right.
And when I grew up, trans women weren't called women or trans or anything like that. They were called freaks, and they were less than a fifth of a person. They were treated like animals, and they were constantly getting murdered and attacked when I was growing up, especially down in the Tenderloin and the Mission, because they couldn't get real jobs. They weren't allowed to be people. They were shunned. And so the only way they could make money was prostitute. That's pretty fucking harsh.
Right.
And nowadays, it's great to see how far we've come.
Right.
But we have so much farther to go. And for me, playing a lot of gay rooms, I play black rooms, I play white rooms. I've got the trifecta because I come from such a place of love. And it's funny, that night at the album, I have a lot of trans friends and a lot of them showed up to the record recording.
Right.
And it was really amazing to watch different groups of people. I had trans men and women. I had my Twinkie gays. I had my blacks from Brooklyn, like, Brooklyn, what's up? And then I had, then I had my regular professional gays. And then I had my waspy Connecticut's. And then I had my MAGA Staten Islands in the back. And then I had comics and straights. So it was really cool to see all these different,
eclectic background, basically.
Yeah. And people that would never hang out together were in the same room at the same time, laughing at the same stuff. And it was funny, about a year and a half ago, I was playing at the Duplex. It's a big gay club here in New York City. Okay. And they do a comedy night. My friend Dana Friedman, she's a trans woman and she's a stand-up comic. She's very funny, very smart. So she booked me on her show to headline it. And it was funny because I did the pronouns bit that night because I like to test it and see how, how they're going to, how a certain community is going to react.
Right.
And I had this trans girl come up to me. She was around 30, adorable. She goes, "Oh my God, your pronoun bit is so hilarious. I'm going to use that to explain to my straight friends what pronouns are." And I started laughing and I was like, "Oh my God, that's the biggest compliment I could ever get." And, I have full support because they know I'm not meaning anything mean, because my thing is, don't depend on a word to save you. You are going to save you, your greatness, and not giving a fuck how someone thinks of you. Don't give them that power. I always tell people this: if it's not paying your rent, it's not putting food on your table, it's not putting clothes on your back or eating your pussy, it doesn't matter. It has no power, zero power. So if it doesn't check any of those boxes, don't give it any power, don't give it any thought. And the more we don't pay attention to people that want to hurt them or want to hurt people, as aggressively and want to take people down or cancel them or whatever, it's like, no, just leave people alone. Let people live. Just let them. If that's what makes them happy, who gives a shit?
Right.
And it's just so funny when with the, oh shit, I just lost my thought. This is called COVID brain fog. What should I call it? With the pronouns, blah, 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 blah. I forgot what I was going to say now. I was going to such a cool point and I just lost it. Don't get old. Just don't get old.
Too late for that. Well, so here's something that I was actually curious about with you, because you had, because you talked about your, the in the bit about, you said before just now, and you even said that at the end of the bit as well too, about, just be who you are. Don't worry about these other things. You mentioned that in the bit as well. But when I'm wondering if, not necessarily the pronouns joke, but more or less about the subject matter, about all those, in this case, to some people, taboo subjects. You can't talk about these things because it may be taken the wrong way and so on and so forth. Since you had started, because you started doing comedy, I believe back in 95, 96, around there. And so you've been doing it for over 20 years at this point. But when you started back then, and with the background you've had with growing up with, the gay community and the various other people you've come across as well too, and a lot of the comedians at that time that were also great, gay as well too, and Flame Monroe, I think, was around that time as well too. One of the major ones, one of the forefronted transgenders, comedians that they're meant to say. So she's when you start to see, she's great too. But what I'm saying is that when you start seeing the trajectory of how comedy was at that time, because you talked before that the stand-up comedy scene was kind of dead at that point. But they're slowly starting to get back to its momentum there. But at that time, some things that were taboo today weren't necessarily taboo back then. You could literally
Right.
talk about almost anything.
Right.
And now that, because what's interesting for me is that when you start talking about these various things here, I've gathered from just listening on the audio alone that the response has been rather positive for people's reacting to that. And that was a wake-up call for me too, because I've heard a lot of comedians talk about certain things, and it's not uncommon to hear nowadays, but where they bring up one subject matter and then someone reacts to them in a negative light, and it almost ruins the entire show for the most part. But I'm not saying it has never happened to you, but when I'm listening to you talk, it seems like it doesn't seem to happen as much from when I'm listening to your stand-up here, the clips I've seen online and the various other conversations you've had as well too. And I'm wondering if you had any concerns about getting into these areas of topics where if you make fun of a certain group of people that there's going to be a negative response. Your response has always been, if they can't take a joke, then it's not my fault. It is what it is. But those that can take the joke understand the reasons for why I said it in the first place. So I'm wondering if, when you started back then and how you look at things now, do you feel like the comedy scene is starting to get a little better as things start to move along the way, or do you still feel like it's a long way before we get to that even keel of like, it's a response, but the reaction is not going to be as negative?
Well, here's the hidden ingredient in that. Now, I've watched comedy since I was a kid,
right?
And I watched cycles. And I remember back in 2000 when Joan Rivers was the red carpet. She made the red carpet a big thing.
Yeah.
Before that, nobody gave a shit about the red carpet. Oh, they're arriving. It was all about the award show. Here comes Joan Rivers. Now it's all about the red carpet. Nobody gives a fuck about the award show, right? So it's flipped. Yeah. And they all wanted to watch Joan because they wanted to hear what she had to say about the outfits and the celebrities that came down the red carpet. Everybody tuned in. We were all addicted to Joan Rivers. And then around that time was the politically incorrect thing. Oh, you got to be politically correct. You got to be politically correct. And Joan would complain like, comedy is comedy. Funny is funny. You can't be so butthurt over stupid jokes or words. We're not, we're just comedians. We're pointing shit out. Get over yourself. It's your ego. And what I always tell people, when you're going to deliver a joke, especially if you're going to talk about a taboo subject, you have to commit to that point of view, not 100%, 100,000%. You have to be in that. And it cannot come from any place of anger. If there's a stitch of anger in your body about something, or bitterness, like a negative bitter, not like a funny bitter, not like a drag queen bitter, but like a real negative anger, there's a darkness, it's going to come out when you're on stage.
Right.
Even if you try to hide it, doesn't matter. Your sadness will come out and your anger will come out. When I was younger, I was a lot angrier, of course, because that's what, you work through your bullshit. Comedy helped me work through my bullshit. I used to be a lot angrier on stage than I am now when I started. But I'm just very happy and I love everybody. And I think we all need to get our balls broken. And also you have to be able to take it. If someone comes for you, you have to be able to handle that kind of banter or you're done. So it's either if you have any ounce of anger in your body or resentment and you try to deliver something that's taboo or controversial or edgy, it's going to come out fucked. You're going to lose the entire room and they're all going to see right through you and turn on you. But if it comes from love and throwing yourself under the bus alongside of it, it's a different reaction. And I don't have any anger in my body for anybody, not even for my father. Like that's done. But, I don't have any anger left. I just don't. Life's too short. Life is beautiful. I love my life. I love being alive. I love that I get to do stand up and I get to go to the gym every day. I get to, hang out with my friends. I get to go on the road. I get to shoot stuff. I get to do podcasts. Like I get to do all these really cool things. So what's not to love? And so when I go off on somebody, like if I'm in a show, if it's a short set, if it's like 10, 15 minutes, I'll work the room and then throw in a bit or two here because my bits get long. So I try not to do too much because then I always go over the light and then I feel bad. But so I'll play with the room and see what's happening in the room and meet them halfway. And it's just, I have so much so much fun being on stage, and it's more fun now than it was like 15 years ago. I went through a depression and nothing was fun anymore. And then I snapped out of it and everything was fine. But once I snapped out of that depression, that's what I had to do to get rid of all that shit, I guess. And then the delivery became a lot lighter. It became more fun. I got huge reactions. And I was like, holy shit, being happy is pretty cool. It's selling, you know what I mean? So I don't care what you are or who you are or where you come from. I'm going to fuck with you. I don't care, because we're all the same. If we're all going to sit at the same table, then you know what? I'm going to break your balls the same way that I would break somebody else's balls at the table. So sit at the adult table with me, have fun, and enjoy and prosper and be who you are. But I'm going to break your balls. But you can't sit here with us and not let us break your balls, but you can break ours. So to me, that just shows someone that doesn't really know who they are yet, or isn't really comfortable in their own skin. They're searching. So they're looking for labels and things to pin on themselves so they could try to fit in a box somewhere, so they can identify as something in any group. It doesn't matter. Just anywhere, whether it's at work or it's at home or it's at school or if it's, with your friends or at a bar, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like everybody's trying to find their place and find out who they are, instead of just like taking time and just getting to know themselves and not giving a shit what people think. But that's where I think a lot of that reactionary stuff is, like, you have to call me this or you're canceled. I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they're young. They're still figuring it out. Remember, when I'm 52, and when I was young, our big rebellion was punk rock. Shave the head, mohawks,
right.
Mosh pits, stage diving, piercings, ripped up jeans and t-shirts, Doc Martens, spikes. That was our rebellion. That was our pronoun. That was our acting out, whatever that was. You know what I mean? So it was like, kids go through this. Let them. If they want to experiment, like, hey, I think I'm a boy or I think I'm a girl, let them figure it out. Just, support them. Let them know, hey, all right, or let's figure this out. And then a lot of times they'll be like, it's just a phase, or it's real, or they really are being their authentic selves. And whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just be you and love who you are and love what you're becoming.
I actually wanted to bring something up with you about one of the bits you had done in your album here, because there's something that you had you talk a lot about, you more or less where you've come, because you mentioned before you're born and raised in San Francisco, and the community of growing up in as well, and then coming over here to New York, or coming over to New York, I'm going to say, because I'm here in North Carolina, but you're going over to New York. You talked about your transition from San Francisco, where I know you were based out in LA before you came to New York.
Yeah, I left the LA part out of the album.
Yeah, but I was familiar with what you were referring to there. But coming over to New York, and specifically at Hell's Kitchen, understanding the culture that it was known for back in those days, and when you come out, you realize that it's not like that anymore now. Right, it's all gone. And I thought that was a pretty good one too. But what's also interesting too is that I was coming across, listening to your album again rather recently, and I remember something you had said before. I can't remember how far back this conversation was, but it was something about when you had first started doing comedy. One of the things one of your opening bits was, I think it was when you talked about your impersonation of Cher, and that was kind of more or less what broke the ice, if you will, that got people's reaction, and that kind of more or less gave you more confidence to continue on with your comedy. And then I'm not sure if that was something you intended on wanted to bring back with this stand-up bit that you did for the album, because I'm assuming that was more or less one of the older bits you had done from way back then.
I hadn't done the Cher bit in like 20 years.
Right. So that was your first time in that time that you did that for the show.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I go on the road, I'll bring it out, but I don't do the whole thing. At the album recording, I did the whole thing, but I haven't done the whole thing because there's a second half to that bit.
Right.
And I would only do the second half in gay rooms because they understand who Cher is. They know who Chaz Bono is.
Right.
They know all the, the pop culture garbage. So in straight rooms, I never did the second half. I would always cut it. Or I would have gotten away with it too if it had been for you meddling queers. Right. And that's where I would cut it, where I did this whole bit about Chaz coming out to her mom. But Cher at the time, this is true story. Cher was on Oprah. And she had been talking about Chaz. How do you feel about Chaz coming out? And Cher was very upset because, not because Chaz was gay at the time, but it was that she was the last one to know because she's Cher and she's a big, she's a big hag. She's a huge ally. But Chaz was afraid to tell her because she didn't want to disappoint her mom. And so she told Sonny, I exaggerated, made a list of all Cher's boyfriends that she ever slept with. And,
Yeah.
and like she told all them except her, because Cher was mad because her ego, not because, anything real. Like, you exaggerate stuff for comedy because it's funny. And then I had this, then it went into what it would be like at Cher's Malibu beach house. And Chaz comes over for Sunday dinner. What that conversation must have been like after Chaz came out.
Right.
And maybe Cher's in the kitchen. Maybe she's had a little too much to drink and she starts talking shit to Chaz. So she starts, Cher starts talking to her and then starts roasting her and doing this whole act out of Cher making fun of her daughter being gay and all this stuff. And then the end line of that joke was, "Hey, Chaz, I didn't realize eating pussy was so fattening." And that's usually how I ended. But that chunk, I would say, for gay rooms, because straights didn't know who Chastity Bona was half the time. And so I did it for the album. And when I was doing it, I'm like, in my head going, you haven't done this in 20-something years. Why are you doing this now? Why is this coming out of you? So I just went with it. But we cut it off the album. Because I told her, I said, I didn't do the whole thing properly, so I don't want it recorded.
Got it. So, but when you were, because you just mentioned now that you were hesitant to doing it, because it's been some time.
Yeah, but that was my first big closing bit.
Right.
Like when I got on stage and I used her as a tool, like I did, like my first mic, I did 3 minutes, longest 3 minutes of my life, was trying to try jokes out. And then I got the idea, come out as Cher. So my old opening bit was, at the Comedy Store, I had a walker, one of those walkers with the tennis balls. Yeah. I hid it behind the curtain in the OR. And Jeff Scott, may he rest in peace, the piano player, showrunner, he died a couple years ago.
Right.
He played piano, so he would play the comics on and off the stage. So it wasn't like an MC bringing people up and down all night. It was like passing the baton. All right, who's next? And then whatever comic was on before you brought you up. And Jeff would say, "Oh, it's Christy Miller. Okay, come on, whatever." So I would I'd go out in the patio bar. At the time was closed. Now it's like open and big booming business. And I would go through the wall and I'd hide behind the curtain with the walker, and Jeff would hit the music for If I Could Turn Back Time. And the music would start, and then I would come out of the curtain with the wig, the Cher curly wig, and the walker. And that alone used to just destroy without even opening my mouth. It would just, people be dying laughing because I'm going up to the mic with the walker as the music's playing. And then I rewrote the words to the first verse.
Right.
And she falls asleep on the mic. And it just used to get a huge laugh. And I'm like, this is bigger than anything I have. I've only been doing comedy like a year, if that. And I'm like, all right, so this is my big thing. So I need to expand this. So that's how she was born.
When you did it though, at the time, did your feeling about the joke change a little bit at all? About maybe it could have been better as far as how you would have done it differently at that time? Because I know you said that you weren't entirely happy with the outcome because some things had changed along the way as far as how you presented the joke. But when you started doing it at that moment, did you realize at that point, maybe I should have held off and do something else instead? Or now that I'm doing it, I'm just going to do up to this point because it's, I probably needed to work it a little bit more. So I'm curious about how your perception changed a little bit as you were doing it and what you thought of it before and after the fact as well, once you got everything completed.
Well, the first part of the joke I do consistently on the road, not in the clubs in the city when I'm not on the road. The second half, I don't do at all. I haven't done in years. Right. So the Cher bit I've only done in the last year or since COVID's open. I've probably done that Cher bit about 5 times since we reopened. Though, right? Yeah, the whole thing.
Right.
If not the whole thing, just the first half.
Okay.
So the first half for me is fine. That's always fun. But I'm like, God, this is so dated. Like, all right, how am I gonna? But everybody always whenever I do a show, people always go, "Are you going to do Cher?"
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do Cher. So I had to put her on the album, at least half of it. but it was, you know, a lot of stuff I hadn't done in a long time. And what's funny is the opening bit with the Queen.
Right.
Not even planning on doing that.
So that was literally on the spot that you did that? Interesting.
That's how I write material too. I have premises. I mean, I'd done stuff like about the Queen, like, because that was right around the time she died.
Right.
Like about a couple weeks or whatever. And I'd done stuff about her as like if I'm hosting a show or if I just go up just working on stuff. But I didn't plan on doing that for the album. And for me, a lot of the stuff, like, especially with my crowd work, people find it like you're so like the time, like I remember one of the weekends I was with Dice. We were at Soul Joel's out in Pennsylvania. And Joel, the owner's girlfriend, was in the front row both nights. And she goes, I watched you 2 nights in a row, 2 different shows. I said, well, yeah, I mean, it's generally the same 20 minutes that I pulled out because I know it's a Andrew Dice Clay crowd. So let me do this stuff. And I go, but the crowd's different every night. So I'm going to meet the crowd wherever they are and like, hey, let's fucking rock this out. So whatever's happening in the room, I'm going to address it instantly. There's no pre-planned crowd work. I don't have anything pre-written in that sense. When it comes to crowd work, it's all off the cuff. It's all whatever's happening. And I don't have a fear on stage, which is another important factor to have as a stand-up, to be fearless and commit. So I just let things out, and it's just because that's just what's happening. And I just not afraid of anything. So when I go up there and I just start roasting the whole room, whatever's happening, it's fun. And it's fun for me too, because then it's like, you know, it's not just going up there and reciting your jokes that you've memorized, you know, like going up and doing an hour of recited material. I have this memorized. I'm reading off a teleprompter in my brain.
Right.
You know, and to me, it's like that fourth wall is still kind of thick. I like breaking that fourth wall, and I like the crowd to be like almost like on stage with me. And like we're having a huge conversation, laughing and breaking balls together. So I like that intimacy of it. Even if I'm at a theater, like if I'm with Dice, it's like, that fourth wall is huge because the stage and then the seats, I will go and break that wall because it's like, I want that whole theater to be on stage with me. It's so much fun. But it's just a fearlessness that you have to have, and you just have to commit. So sometimes things will just come out and it just comes out. I'm like, oh, that was funny. Let me write that down and put that on the set list. Or like, oh, I'm never saying that again. That was dumb. Or whatever, but that's why I record everything, because stuff like that does come out.
Right.
And definitely not planned for The Queen is Dead.
There's something you also bring up before too in the album, which actually I learned more about once I had heard that album and listened to other conversations you've had in the past as well too. You brought up your weightlifting bit, which is track 13, which I was so. You talked about more or less your introduction to getting into weightlifting, more or less, but specifically powerlifting is where your area of expertise is. Because I was actually curious about your workout routine, because you've kind of touched upon it before, but it seems like you mentioned before that's your routine now. That's something you stick with, and it's helped you out along the way with your more or less your lifestyle, if you will.
Yes.
So. Because when you talked about, you know, how much you've been lifting, and, you know, at the age that you're at right now, because you talked about you're 52 now, but when you started lifting more, it seems like it's actually helped you to better your health, if you will. But I wanted to delve into it with you about that, because when you started doing weightlifting or powerlifting more, and then you also train as well too on the side with some clients you have you've picked up along the way too, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I have clients that I used to work for gyms a long time ago. And these clients have been with me for like 10 years. Okay. So they pay my bills. So I'm free to
that's still consistent now up to this point now.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I only work about 10 hours a week.
Okay. So what's interesting for me though is I'm actually curious about your routine though, because because at this point right now with yourself, because you've posted on your Instagram pages as well too about what you lift and what your reps are like. And you also talked about that who your trainer was as well too. And forgive me because I actually didn't write down the name, so I apologize for not doing so here. But the trainer that you had is someone who's in their 70s that still lives. In most cases, a lot of men that you still train with as well too, from time to time, that are a lot younger as well too. But what I'm actually curious about with you is with your routine, because you talked about how this helped you out before, as I've already pointed out. But I'm actually curious about how you have with the road life that you have as well too, if that also how you are able to kind of more or less pick up something along the way that will fit that lifestyle as well too. Because I'm wondering if, when you're at home training on a more consistent basis than you're on the road, what changes along the way with your routine as far as your lifting is concerned? Because I'm sure certain places may not have the same equipment.
It changes completely.
Right. So how do you make those adjustments for yourself under those circumstances for you to keep that momentum for yourself?
It's hard.
Right.
Because certain places, like the only gym around is the hotel gym, and those are garbage. So I try to go, hey, do you mind if I carry this treadmill and squat with it on my back? And they're just looking like I'm crazy, but I'm being funny, but at the same time, I'm like, there's no fucking weights in here.
Right.
So I'll find the heaviest dumbbells I can find and just try to do like a squat press circuit, a hip, a hinge, whatever I can do to keep moving. I usually just try to at least get squat to press in with heavy dumbbells just to feel like some kind of load, because most places, like the heaviest dumbbells they have are like 20 and 25. I'm like, oh, this is a joke. But, you make do. I'll do sets of 100, break it up, do every minute on the minute. I'll do squat press for like 10. And then in in 10 minutes, you've done 100 squat to press or whatever. So it's like quick and it's easy. But like if I go to Nashville, I have Nashville all navigated because I go there a lot. So my friend Kelly, I'll stay with her, and she lives literally a 5-minute drive to a Gold's Gym. So when I'm in Nashville and I'm with Kelly, I can get all my lifts in, which is great. So I work out there at Nashville and Bellevue. And but otherwise it's really tough. So I just have to improvise and just go, okay, well, I don't have anything to lift, so let's do something just to keep moving at least, or to, because I'll have sometimes I'll have cables, or sometimes they just have dumbbells. So I'll just do a circuit.
Do you bring any equipment for yourself? Because I know some people that travel, I guess depending on their workout routine, some are pretty good at maintaining a pretty consistent routine where, since if they're not lifting heavy, they know that if I can't go to the gym, then I can just do calisthenics because it's consistent with what my frame is, what the routine is like. So if you're at a point where you have access to none of that at all, is calisthenics one of your last resorts to kind of more or less keep with that?
Yeah, I have a TRX. I have about 5 TRXs. Okay. And I throw a TRX in my bag, and that's a suspension trainer. Right. And and it hangs on the door, it locks in, it has an anchor, and you can do a full workout. So if I know I'm going somewhere that I know, okay, that we're at that club or that town is nowhere near a gym and their hotel gym sucks, I'll throw the TRX in my bag, in my suitcase, and then I'll just work out in the hotel room. Not a big deal.
What's the length of time for working out for the TRX? So do you have like an hour? Do you dedicate to that to kind of build that same routine to keep consistent with the amount of weights you lift out, or is it just whatever I can do and then I just move on with the day?
It's with the TRX is so different than weightlifting. So I have stuff that I do with the TRX. It's probably like a half hour, but it's like straight through circuits. There's not a lot of, maybe like 15 to 30-second break in between stuff. It's just more of an endurance circuit and calisthenics with the suspension trainer. So it's a full body workout. It's different. So I'm like, all right, this week we're just doing this. And then my body hates me by the time I get home. It's cranky because I haven't thrown a bunch of weight on top of it, or I haven't picked up a bunch of weight. And then I get home and I go to pull weight. I'm like, oh, the pain is gone. Like I feel so whole and so much better. But it's tough. And like the last few months I've been really busy and been in and out of town. So my workout had suffered a lot. So I'd say the last 6 to 8 weeks, I've really been focusing. I'm like, all right, I got to get back to where I was, because I've lost some of it, especially with my trunk muscle, especially because I don't wear a belt. I don't use that stuff. Right. I was trained under Pavel Tatsulin, and that's how I met him through Ellen Stein, the power lifter that's 70 years old.
Right.
That's my best friend. And she's the one like 12 years ago who got me, when we met, got me back because she was powerlifting. She's been powerlifting since she was 41. Like she got into it and she's 70 now and she's competing. Oh, she's competing today. I got to watch the stream. She's in Ohio at the XPC. And, but she got me back into it. And it was like, oh, I missed this because I had an old spinal injury from like the year 2000 when I fell down a flight of stairs at Gold's Gym Hollywood and fucked my spine up really bad. So I had 9 herniations and bulges and I couldn't feel part of my left side for a while. It's all back now and I have a great sports doctor. It keeps me in one piece. Never had to have surgery, but they always told me suitcase squats. Don't put a bar on your back. You can't load that spine. It'll just compress it even worse with all the damage. So I got away from barbells completely and would do dumbbells and other stuff. And I got really into TRX and just did that a lot. And I actually got really weak doing body weight stuff. And when I got back into lifting again, I was like, oh, fuck, I'm really weak. And then I'm stronger now than I've ever been in my life. I have no pains. And it's probably the smartest thing I've ever done was get back into lifting heavy weights. And when Ellen introduced me to Pavel and Strong First, that completely changed my workout and my techniques and everything completely and for the better. And because of them, because of Pavel and his ideology, I'm stronger, healthier, pain-free, no worries, clean bill of health because of his techniques. I was, little things that he tweaked on stuff with his ideology that changed my lifting completely and took pain out of my lower back, took pain out of my knees, took pain out of my neck, and completely, it's just, I'm grateful. So
what about for your flexibility though? Because, with a lot of powerlifters, I think some people don't realize because I think some people get the assumption that, that because you're getting bigger, you're thicker, that there's virtually no flexibility. And I think this for most people, that's the furthest from the truth. So, but when you started doing that, how much of that has been implemented now, especially now that, when you're traveling, I would think that, well, if I can't lift to a degree that could keep that for me, flexibility, that I'm going to start stretching to kind of keep that momentum for you. Because I think that would be one major factor that helps with that too.
Right. And you have to strengthen to lengthen. That's the old saying. So if your muscles atrophied and you've been sitting so long and your hip flexors are too tight and they're hyperflex and your glutes are shut off and your hamstrings are shut off because you're sitting on your ass for 8 to 10 hours a day.
Right.
Those muscles are shut off. So there's no stretching a dead muscle. Like if a heroin addict, if you try to wake him up to run a marathon, he's not moving. So you have to activate the muscles. So that's why they say dynamic warm up, dynamic stretching, start moving, get the muscles activated. So that's the first sign. That's the first step of getting stronger is activation. You have to activate any muscle group before you can start moving it around, before you can stretch it or strengthen it. So I find being stronger, because I train myself to be hard to kill. So not for anything, not for vanity at all. Because bodybuilders, yes, they're very inflexible. They're not flexible people because they train in body parts. They cut their bodies up in segments because their sport is aesthetic. Posing on the stage, making the muscles pop, the veins and all that shit, right? They have to look good and symmetrical on stage. So it's not a real performance sport. Where powerlifting is all about performance. It could give a fuck how you look in a thong. It's as how much are you pulling off that platform? So we have to, everything is full range of motion, and we have to stay flexible so we can totally keep lifting. And I find with just doing the basics, squat, bench, deadlift, military press, and then I do accessory stuff, like other things to like work, like I'll, do leg press, work on pushing my feet, relaxing and pushing my feet, or do like some other shoulder stuff or whatever things to help, activate certain muscle groups when I do a full body movement. But for the long run, working my body on one kinetic chain is probably the safest thing for you to do as opposed to separating your body and body parts, because we move in all 3 planes of motion as it is. Right. So why would you And yes, powerlifting is all sagittal plane. It's all sagittal. So, but we do other stuff too to keep ourselves in, it's like counter training against your sport. You got to do other things to keep, so the primaries aren't just the only thing working. You have to do other stuff to balance it out. So whatever your sport is, you should counter train against it so it keeps a balance in your body. So like if you're into bodybuilding, if you want to do bodybuilding stuff and that makes you happy, make sure you have your meat and potatoes with your 3 big compound movements or your 4 compound movements. Military press hasn't been in powerlifting in 100 years. So they just do the 3 lifts. But if you have those big compound movements, everything else gets easier. Everything else.
What about for your dieting though? Because when I'm sure you have a pretty consistent diet, but when you're traveling, I'm not sure if you are dependent on. Well, that's what I'm curious, because are you dependent on, if I'm going to a location that may not have the best resources for food? Because one thing I remember, I'll never forget something that someone had told me. They had said that there should be no excuse for you to have a shitty diet no matter where you go, because you can go to the store and find an apple, or you can go to a store and find, a banana or something to really keep with your diet, because unless your diet is, eat whatever I want and train however I want, then you should have no problem whatsoever. But if you have a certain workout routine and a diet is consistent with that, and if you're going to a place that may not have any of that stuff, then you better prepare to make sure that you have whatever it is you need to, when you land, there should be no reason for why you should have some shitty diet in that area. So for yourself though, because again, I think powerlifters typically, from what I'm gathering, have the hardest one, depending on what their goals in mind is when it comes to what their dieting is consisting of with that.
Because we eat for performance.
Right.
We eat to lift. We don't eat to, oh, this tastes good. No, it's like, okay, I have a meat. I have to eat this, and this this week and train and deplete. And then, you go in for your weigh-in, and usually we try to not eat the night before or whatever, because we don't want to weigh in heavy the next morning. So our numbers look better. And as soon as you weigh in, pig out, carb up, get the protein in there, fill up. So you have fucking glycogen to pull this shit. So, it's more of a performance food than it is, because I'm not a foodie. I could give a shit about food. I eat because I have to. And I have no problem eating the same stupid shit because I don't care. I'm not. It's people think, especially living in New York, people are like, oh my God, do you like this type of food? I said, I don't care. I can just eat normal, like chicken and salad or eggs and avocado. I don't care, as long as it's like enough nutrients for me to build muscle and lift weights and to function every day. That's all. I just try to eat the nutrients that I need for that day.
So here's something that I want to transition back into with your comedy here, because there's a joke or something you posted on Twitter last year, actually, that really caught my attention. That because I want to see how, I'm not sure if it's a fair question to ask, but I'm wondering if, because of your workouts and your training and your dieting and all that stuff, has that in any way or shape or form influenced your comedy? And this is the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this is a tweet that you had said from back in December 15, 2022. And it said here, being in the gym when the music is off sounds like a hardcore leather daddy orgy. When I saw that, I actually thought that was really funny, because I'm wondering if that has influenced your stand-up in some way or shape or form when it comes to your workouts, your powerlifting, if you will, because you bring it up in your stand-up. But what I'm specific focusing on is, if anything in that particular lifestyle has somehow influenced you, when you look at, if you're doing a workout routine, you think, I'm wondering if I can use this sort of discipline into my stand-up here, and if that parlays into that as well too. So I'm wondering if something along the way has changed about how you prepare for your stand-up, that your workout has more or less helped influence that, to be able to develop some sort of new preparation ideas, or whatever the case may be, that maybe beforehand it was never thought. And now that you did this, now you realize, okay, now I know I can do this, to bring that into my comedy, if you will.
I think what it's done for me the most is my confidence.
Okay.
It's because lifting heavy weights perfectly, and it's just, there's something so empowering about being able to pull a few 100 pounds off the floor. And when I'm done lifting, I feel like I can do anything. Like I can take on the world now. Like I am so energized from it. Yeah, I'm speaking in tongues because my central nervous system is shot to hell, but I feel so good and I feel so like in my skin, and I could just like, I could do anything. There's nothing stopping me from doing anything. And I think that feeling, being in the gym like that and pulling that kind of weight or squatting that kind of weight is, I think how it's translating is when I get on stage, I can do anything. This is me. This is it. This is my world now. Like I can do all this. I'm not afraid of anything. I have sheer confidence in myself when I go on stage. I don't like, the other night I did this little gig in Brooklyn, and this comic, he's like 9-10 years in. He's a good dude. He's a bartender, but he started a comedy room upstairs in the bar. So the owner let him turn it into like a comedy show every week. And so he asked me to come headline it. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 7 people in the audience. And some of the new jacks that don't have that confidence or that experience or anything like that under their belt were getting upset about it because they were drunk. They weren't there to see comedy. They just came up to support, whatever. And I'm laughing as I love rooms like this because this is where I can let loose and write and come up with crazy shit. So I just hit the record and I just like let loose and try things out because that's how I write. I find like shitty rooms, I just test shit out in. And it's just the magic that comes out of those situations for me is undeniable. So this kid was getting very upset. And I'm like, this kid's got to be like 5 years in. This sounds like a 5-year new jack problem. He goes, oh, are they going to keep the lights like this? And I'm like, yeah, it's a bar show. What do you want from it? This is a shitty, it's not even a comedy. What are you doing? What are you, fucking Dave Chappelle? No, you're a fucking idiot. Shut up. So, and then he was like, bitch, he goes, oh, and then Damon goes up and he just starts talking. Like as people are coming in, just trying to talk. And then once everybody's settled in, then he was going to start the show. So he was up there for like a good, 10, 15 minutes talking. He wasn't really getting them. And it was bad. He goes, oh, he's hosting the room. This is terrible. And he was like panicking. And I go, dude, shut the fuck up. I go, what is wrong with you? I go, this is a bar show. Just go up and have fun. This ain't going to change your fucking career. These 7 drunk people don't give a fuck. And if you bomb, nobody's going to know. And if you kill, nobody's going to know. I go, just shut the fuck up. You're annoying and just go have fun. And he goes, but, and then I just literally did this. I just turned my back to him. I'm like, I'm not listening to you anymore. And he goes, oh, I guess you're right. I go, yeah, I am right. Shut up. And he went up and he did good in the beginning. And then he just started losing them. I'm like, yeah, because you don't have more than 5 minutes. What do you want to be baby fucked with a perfect audience every time you go up? How are you going to grow? Right. Go fuck yourself. Dude, be like us. Hit the trenches. And I went up and I'm like, oh, these people are rowdy. They're out of control. They're drunk. I go, I'm going to have a good fucking time because they're just total trash. And I'm going to live for every trashy moment of this. So I went up and I worked on a couple things. I roasted the room. I played with some ideas. And it was so much fun. I go, see, that's how you have fun. I go, who cares? I go, there's no such thing as a shitty audience. It's how much of that negativity you're going to bring to the stage because of your reaction to what's happening in the room. You have to make it fun. You have to own it and you have to take control by having fun and not letting it get to you.
There's really a lot that I had gathered from you that I said before in the beginning about what, when I saw that post on social media and then listening to your comedy album and then hearing pretty much what I've pretty much gathered from you is what you see is what you get. And then I'm hearing the various conversations you've had in the past as well, too, on the various things you've talked about, your upbringing, and then who you've been in contact with and who you've started relationship with in terms of your comedy with, with the various people you've brought up before about Andrew Dice Clay being one major factor here, Paul Mooney's being one of the major influences that actually brought you out to New York because of your style of comedy he thought would fit more well into that scene. And I do agree with that's the case too, because with a lot of the comedians I've listened throughout the years as well too, there's a certain style that works well in certain scenes here and there that some are very universal when it comes to their comedy that transcends everywhere. But I've seen and listening to your story, I've picked up on a lot of things that have been a major contributing factor with you as a person, along with your comedy as well too. But I think with the one thing I've never really kind of picked up on that, at least from what I can gather, because you've talked to a lot of people throughout the years, so it was almost impossible for you to hear everything that has been more or less a pinpoint of like how have you used certain things that influenced you. But what I was actually curious with you is if there was the one thing that you have gathered the more or less the inspiration or the big influence that you have taken from that you did not think would be the one place that you thought that you had gotten it from. So I'm wondering if throughout this whole journey you've gone through with your career in terms of your comedy, that you have picked up from that was least likely place that you thought would be the one place that would help you have the most influence in your stand-up, in your life, if you will, that had more or less been a major contributing factor to better your comedy, if you will.
Wow, that's a loaded question because
right.
It's like I can't. It's impossible to pinpoint one place because it's a combination
right.
of different experiences. Like a huge leap for me because like for me, my comedy is so ridiculous. My comedy is everybody's inside voice that thinks crazy shit but is afraid to say it. So I say things that like listen to how ridiculous this sounds. It's so ridiculous how we're getting upset over dumb shit. Like, I like to point out stupidity and make fun of it, and also just let everybody know we're all in this together. We all love each other. Let's just have a good time. Because I say things people are afraid to say. So, well, then live vicariously through me, and that's fine, whatever. But things I say are just ridiculous. And with my years, like coming up at the Comedy Store and Mitzi Shore really pushing me and really, really nurturing me. She was amazing. And then meeting Paul Mooney. So going from like mainstream rooms, and then I would work with Paul in my early years in all the black rooms and the urban rooms. And, and I learned so much about myself and about people just playing other rooms. And like, I play the gay rooms a lot. I play the black rooms a lot. I do the white rooms. I love seeing all types of people. I love different. I don't like when everybody looks the same. Like, it's kind of boring.
Right.
That's why I love New York. I mean, you can walk down the street and hear 26 different languages within one block. It's fantastic. I love it because it's different. Like, oh, that's cool. Let me look at this. That's nice. It's not all like Pleasantville. That's
a good one. I like that.
Right. And but I learned a lot opening for Paul and playing those urban rooms because it taught me to not be afraid because somebody looks different, that they're going to react different, or they're not going to understand your jokes. Like, you're a white girl, they don't understand white pop culture versus, I'm like, well, then you have to show them what it is and not just say it. You have to show them. You've got to let people into your world. But playing with Paul and all those urban rooms was probably the best experience of my life. It was the greatest teacher because it taught me how to get out of my own way and just be an idiot. So I found from all those years with Mooney that my act, and then watching the people in the audience when I recorded my album, like all the different denominations of, communities and different backgrounds that would never, I'm like, oh my God, they're all in the same room for me. This is fantastic. I love this. Like, to me, that meant more to me than anything. And it just showed like, yeah, just being who you are 100,000% legitimately, authentically you, and not giving a shit and just committing. Everybody plays along because we're all the same. If you look at it in a broader picture,
right?
We all have our little cultural things and differences or likes and dislikes, whatever. Who cares? But in the end, we're all a family. And if you can just be who you are and be legitimately like 100% who you are, it's going to resonate with everybody. But what I find with a lot of comics, they stick to their, I call it neighborhood comedy.
Right.
Like I used to do shows in Caribbean rooms in Brooklyn years ago when I was with Mooney. These guys would book me in these Caribbean rooms. Oh my God. Those are some of the funnest shows in my life. And, they don't know about white girl. Look at this white girl. She like lightning, And I'm like, and it's so, that's what one of the guys, you like lightning, this white girl. And, it's so funny, but it was like, but it's, and I would be with these local guys and I'm like, yeah, they're killing because this is neighborhood jokes. Right. Like these jokes don't translate outside of a 5-block radius. Like this is some neighborhood shit. This is some local shit, but this shit won't it's funny because I get it because I understand the culture. I understand the neighborhood. But if you take that to like a mainstream club, they're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? We don't get this. So I always call like a lot of these comics are great, but they're just neighborhood comics. They stick to Brooklyn. They stick to the Bronx. They don't venture into the city. Or they stick to Jersey. You know what I mean? Like they stay, or Long Island, they stay in their bubble. So it works for them in that little bubble because that's what that little bubble is. But I'm like, dude, you got to broaden your horizons and be able to talk to everybody. And the beauty about New York City is that when you play a mainstream club, everybody's in the audience. So it really tests who you are as a performer. That's why they say New York is hard. I always tell people, come to New York if you want to work. Go to Los Angeles if you want to showcase. It's 2 different places. Los Angeles, you take your finished product and you go out there and you showcase. You show them what you got. But if you need to work or you want to work or get better, you come to New York. Because you could get on stage every night of the week 4 or 5 times a night if you really hustle. I'm lazy, but
I just want to say in closing for you because there's something that I didn't mention to you before in the beginning, and I'm going to just say for you in closing now because, I've been in a pretty unique position where I've been able to listen to a lot of people talk about their various backgrounds and in the various fields they're in, and in a lot of ways, some people have really, really, really changed my perception on a lot of things. And sometimes I'm not saying that I was going to lean in one area that, that was going to be my stance. It's more in a sense like I've listened to enough stories where I think I got a good idea about something. And then someone else comes in along the way and just completely changes everything for me about how I look at certain things.
Sure.
And truthfully, and I'm not, and I hope you don't understand. I hope you believe what I'm saying here. But when I had listened to your stand-up comment, a lot of things that I had looked at from a certain perspective had changed a lot for me. And then when I've listened to you talk along the way too, that also have changed a lot how I look at certain things along the way too, where not to say that I have more of like a liberal or conservative perspective things. It's not like that. It's just more about, I think I had an idea. And then when I listened to other people in various groups share their perspective and then kind of getting more I wouldn't say an outside perspective from yourself, but more about an honest perspective, if that makes any sense. It's kind of hard for me to kind of filter out what I'm trying to point out.
I know what you're saying. It's for me, it's more common sense.
Right.
Because I'm a Gen Xer. I think that Gen Xers have the best of both worlds. And if we utilize it properly, we'll crush. Because I love my generation. I love being from Gen X. I love it because we grew up without all this bullshit technology. So we got to learn who the fuck we were back in the day. We fell down, skinned our knee, went, oh, I won't do that again. That sucked. And you move on and you grow. We didn't have cell phones and we barely had bedroom phones, like landlines. That's what we had. And, we had 2 through 13. Like we didn't have all these channels. And when I was a kid, Showtime came out and it was only a primetime movie channel. It came on at like 7:00 and it ended at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And it showed movies that period. And then HBO came out like 2 or 3 years later and they were doing comedy specials. And movies. And then Showtime's like, well, we're going to do comedy too. So like the late 70s, early 80s, when they were the pay cable, they were the big ones. And it was like, ooh, you have HBO? Oh, you are so cool. That is so controversial. You can watch movies in your house? Ew, on TV. That's so crazy, right? Yeah. It was so, that was such a big deal for us. And, I grew up with CB radios. We didn't have cell phones. We had, walkie-talkies, that we thought we were so fucking high tech. We're retarded, it was stupid. You know, Operation. Come on, people. We pulled out plastic things out of a guy with a red nose. Like that was our techie. That was our PlayStation. So it's so funny. Like and then being able to, as we're older, with technology coming out, you know, like, oh fuck, I should have had kids. I can't figure this shit out. Where's a 12-year-old when you need one to, you know, can you do my TikTok for me? I don't understand this. But it's cool. But once you figure it out, it's like we got to grow up without that. But now we get to enjoy having it older and being more responsible and knowing who the hell we are, so we don't get lost in the, I need likes. Oh my God. Oh my God. He liked my picture. Oh my God. You know, and it's so sad with the people that with the selfies all day long. It's the same fucking pose. Like, girl, bye. Blink or something, you know, like, you know, open your mouth, do something, like make it different. You know, like, it's so funny how we're so dependent on these things and on these cell phones and these apps that we depend on them for validation. And I'm like, no wonder these kids are lost. No wonder they're seeing what's on. I mean, our thing was, you know, Cosmopolitan magazine airbrushing Cindy Crawford's leg skinnier, and she got mad. She's like, you cut my leg. That's not how I look. And that's all the eating disorders we had growing up. The girls being bulimic and anorexic because they wanted to look like the model on the picture on the magazine cover. Now they're inundated with all this shit on TikTok and Instagram, and the models and the cinching of the waist and the Fashion Nova ads where they make the waist 1 inch wide and their ass 75 feet long, you know, and it's just like, what are you doing with that waist? How are you carrying all that ass? That's what I want to know. How do you not like tip over? Like, you know, if you eat an apple all the way to the core and it kind of falls apart, that's what I'm expecting these girls to fall apart in half. Like, it's, you know, it's so funny. And I'm so glad I wasn't raised on technology like that. I don't know how old you are. How old are you?
I'll be 38 this year.
Okay. So you're still a baby. So your majority of your adult life, you've had technology.
For the most part, yeah, I would say. Yeah.
Like, I didn't get Instagram. Like, you know, I think we got Twitter in 08 or 09.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Because we had to get Twitter handles when I played roller derby. They want that the league wanted us to have Twitter handles. So I'm like, all right, I have my Twitter handle. And I'm never on Twitter that much. I think, I should post something on Twitter. I always forget.
Yeah.
It's so, to me, Twitter that's where all the toxic, woke, cancel, triggered, psycho, you know, can't form their own thought, conspiracy theorist, crazy. It's so, like, there's white Twitter, there's black Twitter, and there's gay Twitter. White Twitter is so angry and vile and disgusting. It gives me such like anxiety when I log on to it. It's so bad. But black Twitter, honey, and gay Twitter, I live for those. They use Twitter the way it's supposed to be used. It's so, like, it's, if you ever get a chance, like follow, like, there's an account called Black Twitter or Black Twitter Fails. I forget what it's called. But if you look up Black Twitter on Twitter, I pee my pants. Just the stuff that they post. Oh, it's so genius. I'm like, why can't white people do like this? Why are we such angry fucking assholes?
Well, you know, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this, because like I said before, you had basically changed a lot of perception about how I look at certain things. And a lot of it's just very simple stuff too, which I was trying to point out before, because like I said, it wasn't like I'm conservative. It wasn't really that. It was just perception of individuals and then the broad scheme of things, if you will. Yeah. And when I heard your comedy album, a lot of it had changed about you could still do these things. And and not to say it's not just unique to you, but it's just the way that you presented it that I thought was really unique. That to me, that gave me an insight about something that I felt like was almost like a lost art form, if you will, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So in hearing you talk and especially listening to that album, that really what gravitated me to you, to hear you out as a person at the end of the day, where I thought, if you could do that here and get people to react to it in a positive manner, I was just curious to see what else you could do outside of that. That really got my attention to really delve into you further here. So the fact that you gave me the opportunity to speak with you and just to really go more in depth with you about some things here, that really is a really great privilege for me to do so, because I was hoping that we could delve a little bit further. But it's hard for me to try to figure out what I can get into with you, because you have so many conversations where you've delved into a lot of different things. So it was a challenge, but I was hoping that I could provide something that could give you hopefully a good impression, if you will, to walk away with at the end of the day. So that's what was my goal in mind to hopefully leave you with here. So, but if anything, you left a great impression on me, because there was a lot that changed for me about how I look at things, as I mentioned before. So if anything, I want to say thank you for that, because you've actually bestowed something onto me that I didn't anticipate, but was grateful for at the end of the day. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. That's a huge compliment. No, that means a lot. Like I always think my comedy's silly and ridiculous. Like, oh, who would say this? See how crazy this sounds coming out of my mouth? It's insane. Like, are we that crazy that we're getting caught up in words? Because to me, words are just words. It's the intent behind them.
Right.
And if your intent is positive, it's amazing what you can get away if it's genuine. It can't be fake intent.
Harlan said that as well too in many of his bits, way back in the day as well. So I think as I said, when you said those things, I was like, that it's a kind of a. I mean, I'm sure Carlin has an influence on you, but it reminded me of that period when he had mentioned those things where it was like, it's the words are one thing, but the intent is the most important thing. And I think when you mentioned that in your bits, it reminded me of that as well too. It was like almost like I said before, it's a forgotten art, if you will, with the intention of what you were intending on, what you're wanting to put out there. So yeah, I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah. What I found, letting go completely and getting out of here and just trusting my gut and just letting my heart and gut just speak. And just letting go and just leaving it all on the table. It's kind of, when comics are able to do that, it's kind of undeniable. And if people are denying it, because I learned, this is one thing, this just made me think of it. There's a big thing I learned from Paul Mooney. One of the million things I learned from Paul Mooney was, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. Just do your stuff. And if someone's reacting and there's no malintent, there's no, meanness or anger or something. And if you're talking about something and somebody reacts negatively or gets emotional or gets crazy on you, it's because you're mirroring what they don't want to look at with themselves.
True.
So you're triggering something in them that's questioning about them, what they're afraid to look at or acknowledge. And I used to see this a lot. Like, I get off stage and I would sit and watch Paul. I know his whole act, all his 7,000 hours of material by heart, but it was always amazing because every night it was something different. Like, it was, because it was different. It was his mindset was different. The audience was different, or he'd just bring a whole bunch of new shit that he saw on the news. And I would watch white people get very upset. They'd be like, should we leave? And I'm like, and they look at me and I'm dying laughing. Like, I'm falling off the chair laughing, screaming. And they look at me weird. I go, and then one night at Caroline's on Broadway, this couple looked at me as I was sitting against the wall, and I go, he ain't talking about me. And I'm like, it must be you. Like, just because he says white people, he doesn't mean you personally.
Right.
He's talking about society. And the system. He's not talking about you. He's not pointing to you, Joyce, and going, it's your fault that slavery happened. No, it's not. But if you could get over yourself, and if you really know who you are and know what you're about, this will be funny because you'll know that it's not about you. Right. Anything a comedian says, unless he says your name specifically, is not about you. Nothing anybody posts on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, it's not about you unless they literally say your name and call you out on it.
Right.
So to watch people get triggered over shit that means nothing is hilarious. Just shows me they don't know who they are yet. They're still searching. They haven't figured it out, and they lack common sense because they don't know who they are. When you know who you are as a person, you know, I'm pretty cool. I know who I am. I got a good grip. I know what I stand for and what I won't stand for. And it's mostly people that have nothing, they have no skin in the game, and it has nothing to do with them. It's a different community. It's a different, lifestyle or whatever. They have nothing to do with it. And those are the ones that get triggered, I find. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, oh, so you really are afraid that you might identify with this community. Oh, okay. And that's why you're getting upset. stuff like that. I always laugh. I go, you just don't know who you are yet. You haven't figured out your stance and figured out, like in Nashville, I was laughing the last time I was there. I was like, you guys are brand new liberal. You just got your liberal cards. I go, so you're looking at your boxes on your checklist going, oh, wait, can I laugh at that? Let me read the box. Oh, that's all. Okay, I can laugh at that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, it's not on my list. I can't laugh. I go, you're new liberal. I go, you'll get used to it. I go, just follow me. Come on. I've been doing this my whole life. I've been liberal my whole life. Let's go. And they were laughing because they don't know what they can or can't laugh at because they're afraid to be a bad person, as you were saying before.
Right.
People are so afraid of what other people think.
Right.
And that's the problem. It's like, laugh. So what? It doesn't make you a bad person because you laughed at a joke. I mean, I have a nice trans following, as an example. Like, I have a nice trans following that love me because I do speak up and I do speak on their behalf, in the sense of, like, I don't speak for them. I speak with them. I let them say their stance, and then I just back them up. I got your back. Whatever you need, I got you. But the problem comes from people speaking for other communities that they don't identify with. It's like, no, you can't put words in their mouth with their experience. You have to let them talk, and then you can just support them. Just have their back. That's it. You don't have to say anything. Just have their back. And that's where a lot of things get misconstrued, because people are constantly trying to put words in people's mouth. I'm like, but you can't know what it's like to be black, a young black man in this country. You can't know that because you're not black. You don't understand what they go through. Getting pulled over with the police. I see, you know what I mean? Like, you can't understand. You can empathize. You could support them. Like, you need this and I support you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to have your back. But the problem is when these kids get on Twitter and they start speaking for certain people or calling people out, because people just want to be heard. They want their voices to sound important. They want to feel like they've contributed something. And it's like, you don't always have to say shit to feel important. And that's when social media has taken and blown that out of proportion, because everybody thinks their voice is opinion and that it matters. That what they say goes. And it's like, sometimes you need to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You need to know when to pull back and then when to speak up. You got to know. And it's just common sense. That's all.
So on that note, we'll close off here. But I do want to say again, thank you for giving me your time, because not to repeat myself again, but there really was a lot that I've learned and has changed a lot on my perception of things, as I said before. So again, I'm hoping to repeat myself doesn't bore anybody listening to this here, but I do want to say thank you again, because now that I've heard you speak on the various subject matters you've got onto here, especially from your comedy album here, I'm actually really looking forward to see if you're going to be doing this again down the line, to try something new in new endeavors in other areas that I'm sure that there's yet to be that you've yet to touch upon here, that I'm really curious to see your perspective on that as well too, on a more broader scale, if you will. So I'm really curious to see how that will pan out for you moving down with this path here that you've taken on.
Well, I have 3 more records to put out for this record company, so there'll be more.
Well, I'm anticipating there. So, again, for the camera, I want to say thank you again, and I would love to have you back on.
I would love to. This was great. You're awesome.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're so wonderful, and thank you, and I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your compliments and how you feel, and it's kind of weird when I'm like, my comedy's silly and it's just a spa day for your brain to not think about real shit. We could think about dumb shit and laugh. And then you're like, wow, you really changed my perspective on things. I'm like, how do you put a price on that? Like, how do you, it's like, wow, like, that's so cool. Like, you don't even know what that did to my heart. Like, wow, that was just, you made my day.
Oh, well, if anything, you've made my day as well too, but I really mean when I say it, you have no idea what the perception you may look at things really had impacted on my here. So, but again, I can literally go on for hours about that. But thank you so much for that. And again, I would love to have you back on. And
anytime, please.
I appreciate
anytime.
That. So for
I
cameras,
love this.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you, Rob. It was so great to meet you.
Likewise. All right.